most catches. And usually whenever you've been the most targeted, different people can limit what he has done, but they haven't. Nobody has. I mean, he had 8 catches last week, in the game, and, he continues to do that. So, we got our work cut out for us. We go on the road, still looking for that first win on the road, and it's going to be a tough place to play, but we're really excited, coming off of Saturday and where we're at as a team, and pretty healthy, relatively healthy, and ready to go. So with that, open up with any questions.
Coach, with Tyree out, who needs to step up this week?
It starts with a continue. I mean, Josiah Pierre's had his best 2 games probably of his career. And really excited about what he's doing. Had 2 sacks the other night in the game, sack, strip fumble. Continue with the big guys up front. Tony and Jay Boog have played really well this year for us. I thought Joseph Adedire played well whenever he went out. We're going to do a couple of different things. Wooten has been there at that spot, so he'll play more. We'll shuffle some guys around to kind of rotate through there. Miles Cole early in the season played there, and we moved him back inside. And so, they're going to get 2 or 3 guys at that spot. Doing that, Isaac Smith this last week played a lot more at that boundary defensive end behind Josiah. So it would be, Isaac getting some of that. And then I didn't have him on here because I thought he could play last week. Just didn't get to that point. But Dimitri Moore should be able to be more active this week in practice and be able to play that boundary backer behind Josiah. So we'll shift some more bodies over to where Tyree was playing.
You mentioned Ohio State's defense, and that's been good for years. What do you see schematically that allows them to have so much success?
Well, they do a good job with 3-man pass rush, probably one of the best over the last few years, just rushing 3. They've got a really good defensive end in number 9. The linebackers are about 3 to 3.5 yards off the ball, and, if you give them lanes to run through, they're going to run through. Really good tackling team. Fundamentally, they do a lot of things right, almost everything right. And, the biggest thing that you see out of them is the effort that they play with. They play football the way you're supposed to play it, especially defensive football. Something that we're getting closer and closer doing with the effort that we're playing with. And so I think you see that with their defense.
Coach, on Saturday, you guys mentioned that you're one more game away from one of y'all's goals that you guys set out from the beginning of the year. Does the talk in the locker room or the talk at practice with that possibility of you guys going to another bowl game, is that talk different in the locker room for you specifically this week?
No, we talked about it yesterday. They know what we have, but we don't really just keep on it. Now it goes back to what we do all the time of being 1-0 and, how we're going to practice today, like in the moment. I think – mental toughness is being where your feet are at that time, right then. And so we'll just keep hitting that. And, I think we got a good plan for how we're going to practice tomorrow and just try to continue to build off of that. We scrimmaged our young guys again yesterday, and they didn't get to play and, against Kansas and, just trying to keep growing the program. And so we talked about, what this game means and what we have in front of us, but it'd go straight into game planning and playing a really good football team.
Go down to Carlos.
Coach, I know you mentioned Barron is going to be a game time. Do you still foresee the reps being 50-50 for Tyler and Donovan this week, or do you kind of see him getting himself into the rotation this week?
No, Barron, whenever it comes to game time, he'll throw stuff like that. He'll know the game plan. My expectation is to, start Tyler and have him ready to go and play like he did this week, and use Donovan in his packages. And really, we were so close with it. Donovan came in last week and threw that jump ball to Mason, did a really good job. Had to put it to where it was either Mason catching it or nobody catching it at 6'9". And then, we were going to continue if he was the only quarterback on the field, but Tyler and him were on the field, so we went ahead and, switched back. But we'll continue doing that and giving him things that he does really well, and then just have Barron if anything crazy happens.
What you saw in film, what did you see from the offensive line that allowed them to be successful or kind of allow you all, like you said, to kind of run the football, which is something that you kind of want to be your identity going forward?
You know, really identifying what we do well in the run game. You know, we've run a lot more gap scheme, counter and power the last couple weeks. It's really helped. Our running backs have got a good feel for those plays. You know, and then those three guys that played the other night, I mean, they're really good football players. I thought they ran physical. I think they play off of each other. They're kind of all three different type backs. And so I think they're feeling really good. They're healthy. And, you know, when you've got a healthy backfield, that's always good this time of year. And, you know, I just think really the biggest thing for us is really identifying what our offensive line can do well and play off of it.
Go with the Mason and Jeff.
Coach, you talked about before the rotations you're going to have for Tyree, but I guess how big of a hit is it when you have a guy that's such a game changer like he is not able to go?
Yeah, you know, it's tough. I mean, he's leading the all Power 5 players in tackles for a loss. I mean, I think he's leading or tied with Big 12 in sacks, most pressures by Power 5 defensive lineman, outside linebacker. So, you know, it's tough. I mean, you don't just, you know, snap your fingers and replace a guy like that. I mean, he's having an All-American year. I mean, he should be. If he's not, then nobody's watched film and the voters are, I don't know what they're doing, because he should be a consensus All-American on a lot of, you know, different publications. So, and I expect that. I expect him to be. But, you know, you do it where guys have been playing and they're going to play with high effort. And the great thing about Tyree is, I mean, you saw him come back out, you know, and be around his teammates. I mean, he'll do a great job of getting those guys ready and help coach. And, you know, I expect for him to travel with us, you know, and so he'll be there and be on the sideline and be able to see, you know, hey, this is what I'm seeing, and be able to help those guys, you know, get ready to play. And so it's tough. You don't replace a guy like that, you know, especially with just one guy. You're going to have to do it with multiple guys and make sure they're fresh and make sure they're playing really hard.
And then looking at Iowa State again, I think last week's message was finishing plays, finishing all that. When you have a team like that I think they're only, with the exception of one game, was within one score for a loss, how much do you have to echo that again this week?
You know, I think the echo this week is going on the road and winning. You know, we haven't done that, you know, and so this is our last opportunity in the regular season to do that. And so I think that you couple that with going on the road and winning, and coupling with make sure we're finishing the fourth quarter. You know, both teams, we didn't score in the third. They didn't score in the third, so I was happy about that. And then we were able to score in the fourth, you know, to really pull away. And, you know, we got to focus on that again. This is going to be a tight game. It's going to be a really physical game, you know, and contrary, I think we talked about it a little bit Saturday, we played defense in the Big 12, you know, and so you're going to see that. I mean, you saw that in Austin the other day with TCU and Texas. The people that are saying that you don't play defense in the Big 12, I think they're looking at old video or something. They're not looking at what's happening day in and day out in this conference.
Go to Jeff, to your right.
Coach, current weather forecast for Saturday is 24 degrees as a high with a low of 9.
Yeah.
How do you get a team prepared to play in that kind of weather?
Well, we're practicing 30-degree tomorrow. You know, it might be even lower by the time we get on the practice field. We practice on grass. So, you know, and then I don't believe in not talking about it. I don't believe in tough guys, you know, of not wearing a coat, or I just don't believe in that. You know, because guess what? When they get out there, they're going to know it's cold. So you might as well prepare and talk about it. Last year, you know, and I mean, I know that a lot of people, it's just like coming here in August and September. You can say you're prepared for the heat and playing in 100-degree weather until you get in it. But, you know, last year we had a day where it was about 18, and I showed a picture. I had a picture of Matthews, and he had ice in his beer after our, you know, tempo running and everything. And that was a day, I mean, they can tell you, I was telling them, hey, this is just getting us ready for November games in Ames, Iowa. And I just kept saying it over and over and over, you know, when we were out there running. And so it's one of those deals that, we've talked about it. Our PowerPoint yesterday, I ended the PowerPoint with that picture of him with ice in his beard. And so good thing is we got some strength guys on our staff that, played and coached at Wyoming, and so they'll help prepare. I told Sammy Morris to get the running backs ready. I mean, he played in Buffalo and New England, so I imagine it was pretty cold in those games. And so we're going to talk about it. I don't believe in this tough guy thing of not talking about it, because there's a reality when it hits you in the face. And then, I want them to know about it before we get there, that this is what it's going to be like. And then now we got to just shut up and go play.
And Trey Wolf picked up Special Teams Player of the Week. Can you speak to what that means for what he's gone through this season and what kind of special it is for that kid?
Yeah, I was really excited, man. That was such a big moment in the game to grab some momentum back. And I sent it to him, Mac, and Knox. And, whenever they come off the field, and I always say good snap, good hold, good kick, whenever it is. And so I sent it to him and said the same thing in my text, good snap, good hold, good kick, because that was great operation by those guys. And, Trey has, just been that, steady guy. It's not letting a lot of things affect him. And, man, that was a really big kick for us to grab the momentum back.
So Collier to Justin.
Coach, you mentioned Hutchinson a minute ago. The fact that, they're doing everything they can to make him not catch the football. He just continues to lead the Big 12 in targets. What does he do to get open? Yeah,
he's a great route runner. They have a good scheme for him. The biggest thing that they probably do is move him around. It's different. If he only played outside receiver, you could do some things coverage-wise, to try to take him away. But they move him around so much, and obviously, whenever you do that, the kid's got to be a really smart football player and be able to pick up, every position whenever he's moving around like that. And, catches the ball well. He's got really good quickness, and he's tough to tackle. And, we've got to know where he's at. I mean, whether it's what we're doing coverage-wise or anything like that, but we definitely have got to know where he's lining up. And then, Iowa State, offensively, they're not doing as much. It was a lot more with their tight ends. But, they're a offense that shifts and motions a lot. And so you can know where he's at, and then he's going to motion over to across the formation or anything like that, or different positions. So you definitely got to communicate and, play with great effort and just have great eyes. We didn't have really good eyes early in the first half. We did in the second half. We got to do that. We got to start out, knowing where he's at and having our eyes where they're supposed to be in the coverage that we call.
It's two different defenses, but how important is it to duplicate kind of the run game that you did against Kansas, knowing the issues that Iowa State's pass defense has been for this program for quite some time?
I think it's huge. I think it makes a big difference anytime you can run the ball. It definitely helps. It settles quarterbacks down. The weather that we're going to play in, I think it definitely helps when you can run the ball. And so I think that's going to be a big part of it. They do such a good job of stopping the run, but I think we're going to have to go out there and establish the run and play physical up front.
Go ahead, Justin.
Coach, if Ty Buchanan can play this weekend, how realistic will it be to see him above Monroe Mills?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
If Buchanan can go this weekend, would it be realistic to see him play above Monroe Mills?
No, we'll keep Monroe there. The thing that after Ty, the way he played against TCU, we were really kind of hoping to where we could keep him there and maybe slide Monroe over to the left tackle spot. I think Caleb's played his best 2 games the last 2 weeks, but I still believe in competition. It's not like people getting settled, but it is knowing every single day I've got to come out and practice my best, or we're going to be good enough in spots, for somebody to be able to start in front of me. So I still think Monroe will be there at that right tackle, and then as we hopefully continue to get healthier, then you go back to the last week of the regular season and see what you're going to do up front.
Go to Don.
Joey, going back to Tyree for a moment, So what did the X-rays and examinations show?
It's his foot, and with really with all our players, I mean, you got to be, really, you got to do a good job with, and we've got such great doctors with Phi and Crawford, but with a guy that's projected possibly top 10 pick, you're definitely going to double check and triple check, and so. He had X-rays Sunday. He's had, I think, another group today, and then they will get together and see if it's a deal to where, our expectation is, can he play? He won't play this week for sure, but can he play against OU, or is it a deal to where, you shut him down? It's almost like when we become bowl eligible, I do not expect Tyree Wilson to play in the bowl game. If we were playing for the national championship, I'd expect Tyree Wilson to play in the bowl game. But when you're talking about a guy like that that's possible top 10, top 15 pick, you better slow everything down and make sure that you're getting the best information. And so it's his foot, and they're going through every single test. And if it's a deal to where we've got to send him off, we've done that with different people. We sent Landon Hullaby to Aspen to get his hip checked, and the best foot guy is probably in Green Bay, and so we'll definitely do that if we have to do that to see exactly where he's at.
So is it not? Are they ruled out a fracture then, or?
No, they're just still
be.
looking at it. It could be.
And how did y'all ultimately determine that happened?
And
Did he
it was
step on
crazy. I
something?
mean, I don't know, you see on film to where he steps and he immediately, feels it. And I don't know if he necessarily stepped on, didn't really look like he stepped on the whole foot of the tackle from Kansas, but I think he caught his foot, and it was more his foot than ankle.
You talked a moment ago about running, more gap scheme and counter. Obviously, you've done that a lot. Who's your best? What lineman is best pulling on those?
I would probably say when we're running like our dart, Caleb and Monroe have done that. We're just pulling one. Power, we've been better running to the right with Weston, and does a good job. I'd probably say Weston. The thing that's really taken off for us is the play of Mason and Baylor, because if we're running a counter where there's GY, they're that second puller, and they have done such a great job of fitting up on the linebackers. And I thought Mason, it was probably his best game in the run game. And, they're two guys that have really, really taken off. It doesn't surprise me. I think Josh Cochran is the best tight end coach in the country. I definitely think he's the best run blocking tight end coach in the country because he was an All-American as a left tackle, so you expect he understands run blocking. And so I think they have really helped us take off where it comes to our gap schemes.
And going back to talking about the trip to Ames for a moment, what extra will Zane be packing, and what are you going to be wearing?
Yeah, I'm not we played there in 18, and it was the coldest game I've ever coached in. And Matt Rule is a lot tougher than me. He came out there, and I think he was like sleeveless or short sleeves, and man, I looked like Gumby. I had Gore-Tex rain gear on and everything like that, and it was green, so that's why I looked like Gumby. But I'll be bundled up, man. I'm going to be comfortable and fired up, and so Zane will have all kinds of cold gear packed, and Vaseline and right guard so your feet don't sweat, and we're gonna definitely be comfortable and playing fast, and I'm not playing my eligibilities up, so I'll be bundled up. Definitely have a toboggan on and some gloves and everything like that.
Anything else? All right, we'll have Coach Stewart over there in a minute.
All right, thank y'all very much.
Okay. Get Don out of the way first.
Coach, third quarter defense showed up. You're going up against a wide receiver that is really amazing. What do you have to do in your mind, do you feel, to limit the ability for him to make an impact in this game?
Well, I mean, you look at their offense, I don't know that you can really limit it. I mean, he's leading the Big 12 in receiving. What you got to do is do what we did not do on Saturday night, and you've got to limit the explosive plays. It takes eye discipline. They do a nice job running the ball. They run some similar schemes to what we just faced, so I think in a way that will help. There are going to be multiple personnel groupings. You have to be aware of where he's at because he's obviously going to get targeted. So it's more of an awareness of where he's at and playing just disciplined defense to be able to slow him down.
Talk about you were talking after the game about Phillip and his improvements, and he's not there yet. Now that Tyree is out, what are the things that you're going to have and the people that you're going to have to step up?
Well, you know, with Tyree being dinged up, someone's got to step up. I mean, that's just football, and our guys all understand that. I think Joseph Adedire has done a really nice job of stepping in the limited role that he's had behind Tyree. And guys like, you know, Miles Cole is going to have to step up. We'll probably put Miles out at edge a little bit more to take up some of that slack. But again, that's football. It's a sport where you don't ever know because you're always one play away from having to be the guy. So everybody has to prepare like you're going to be the starter, and you know the guys that are behind those guys better be ready to go because you never know if they're going to have to, you know, be called upon.
Hey, Coach, kind of bouncing off that, might be a rhetorical question, but how big of a loss is it that Tyree is out?
Well, I think he's one of the best players in the conference. Anytime you lose, you know, that kind of a player, extremely well respected by his teammates. He brings a confidence to the huddle, and he's made a ton of plays for us. So there's a big hole, but we have guys that I'm confident will, you know, fill that hole to the best of their ability, and we just don't have a whole lot of 6'6", 275 guys that run like he does running around here. Most people don't either.
Hutchinson over there, he's got almost 40 more receptions than the guy who's in second for the Big 12 right now. Why do you think they've been targeting him so much, and why has he been so successful with all those targets?
I think because he's pretty good. I mean, you get a guy that's pretty good. Everybody knows that's where the ball's going to, yet he still gets it. Part of it's their scheme. You know, they're going to run some RPO stuff, and he's going to get matched up one-on-one. You know, in their screen game, you know, they'll find him at times. He's just a guy that you better be aware if he's on your side of the field and you know, he's lined up number one. Pretty good likelihood that I'm going to get tested, and you better be ready for that test.
We'll go with Brandon, then Ariel, and then Jeff.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Coach, Josiah Pierce had a really solid two-game stretch. What can you say about his development and growth?
Well, you know, we need him to. I think he's got the ability. I think he's starting to feel a little bit more comfortable now in our scheme and what we are asking him to do. He's a guy that has the ability to do it, and now with, you know, Tyree obviously not being here this week, someone's got to step up. He did that at the end of the Kansas game, you know, making the big strip sack. That's the ability he has. Now he's got to do that on an even more consistent basis. But I like the progress he's made. And then, like I said, other guys are going to have to step up as well because they're going to be forced into roles that maybe they weren't anticipating being behind Tyree. But JP's got to take up the slack as well as the other guys.
Hutchinson, between your two corners, which one do you think is going to get the more share of him?
I don't know. You have to go to their staff room to find out, you know, who they think is a better matchup. But we're going to be playing multiple corners. You know, I think Kobe's deserving some more reps. Adrian Fry is playing some corner for us. So we just got to keep those guys fresh and keep them competitive.
Back to your left for Ariel.
Coach, kind of going along with Saturday's performance, Muddy Waters and Rashad had two big plays for you guys. And when talking to the players on Saturday, they mentioned that those are two guys who maybe don't get enough credit for what they do on the field. Just want to talk about their impact in your opinion.
I don't know who's not noticing. I certainly do. They're two of our best defensive players, and I know Tyree's imposing looking at, and he's played extremely well. But Mudd and Krishan, I think, are two of the guys that are the heartbeat of our defense. They've been very, very productive, making a lot of negative yardage plays, being disruptive, and making big plays for us. So, knock on wood, we'll keep those guys healthy because those guys are two of the better players on our defense.
Coach, you guys were able to get some takeaways in the game on Saturday, but also kind of left a couple out there and some opportunities. Is that one of those things that happens, or is that one of those things that we can do a better job of coaching that?
Yeah,
it's opportunity.
Right. I was going to say yes to all the above. Certainly they do happen. I mean, we're dealing with guys that are human. They're going to make mistakes, but when you've got the opportunity to have a ball right in your hands, they all have the ability to make that play. We need to make those plays. And when you do, just like that sack strip fumble at the end of the game, it can turn a football game. And so we've got to take advantage when we have the opportunities to make those plays. We have to make them. Similarly, we had sacks at the end of the game that we left on the table. Now, give them credit. They made our guys miss, but when you're unblocked, you got to make those plays.
And as a coach who is in the box, how much do you enjoy the 24-degree high temperature and a 9-degree low?
I've been doing this a long time. Some of us are smarter than others. I'll go wherever, but yeah, I don't miss being on the sideline in 24 degrees. But if that's what it took, that's that's where I would be on the sideline. Going to a place that the weather's going to be a little adverse, it's all part of it. We all have to play in it. I've coached at schools that was just this time of year. That's what you're going to have, and certainly got a little cold last week to get us warmed up for it. And we're going to go outside tomorrow morning. It's going to be in the 30s here, so hopefully that'll get us ready for what we'll face on Saturday night.
You mentioned Iowa State running some RPO, and it seems like most teams run some RPO. How do you teach your guys and prepare your guys to defend against RPO, just generally, fundamentally?
Well, I mean, it's a little bit longer discussion because it depends on the coverage called, but typically you're going to have, we're going to play a lot of closed middle coverage and play press man coverage to make those throws not wide open zone throws. When we do play zone, we typically have a hang player that is in the window that isn't necessarily part of the run fit to try to take the run pass stress off of him, where that decision's off of him. They're going to, through motion shifts, different coverages, they may find a guy that is going to be put in that run-pass conflict, and that's the rub of football is trying to limit those opportunities where they can feel comfortable that, hey, we're going to put the run-pass conflict on this guy, read him, and if he plays the run, we're going to throw it behind his head. We got to do a good job disguising and do a good job mixing it up.
And then it seems like Rabbit has stepped up here recently. Do you agree with that? And if so, what's the reason for that?
He's a good football player. I think the more you play, the more you practice hard, the more schemes you see and know how we defend those schemes. If you're a good player like he is, you're going to naturally get better. It starts at practice. And I think he's been practicing better than he has. It's gotten better, and that's what you expect for guys. That, we talked to our guys back in August. We expect to play our best football in November if we're committed to practicing hard every week. And I don't know if coaches talked to you about our numbers. We have our Catapult GPS numbers that we track how fast our guys are going, how many explosive movements, how much load they're bearing. And we are practicing our Tuesday, Wednesday loaded days better and harder and faster than we did earlier in the year. And that's what you want to have. A lot of times you think, this time of year we got to, back off, or, you got to go a little bit slower because you're beat up. We're doing more, and not necessarily more reps, but we're getting more efficient work for our guys. And when guys like Rabbit do that, it helps them to make those plays on Saturdays. Now, he had one he left there that was in his hands that we got to get him to make, but he certainly will as he gets more of those opportunities.
Anything else for Coach? One more for Jared and then finish with Don.
You mentioned disguising the defense. How important has that become in today's football in terms of playing defense?
It's real important. I think Quarterbacks, offenses, they do as good of a job today throughout college football as they've ever done with the multiplicity of their schemes. And if they know that you're in a certain coverage, be it man or zone, be it one high or two high, and that quarterback can be comfortable of limiting the read that, hey, I know this is my read because they're showing me this pre-snap, and everybody's in the gun for the most part, and then the next thing he does is he sees that and then he looks for the snap and he looks up, uh-oh, that picture changed. Now he's got to process that or reprocess it, and that can be difficult. So what we try to do is change things up and make that quarterback figure it out on the run to try to put a little stress on him because he's putting stress on us just to make it fair.
Hey, Tim, you mentioned a moment ago run-pass conflict. When you gave up the big touchdown pass to the tight end right off the bat in that first series the other night, was that an example of that, or did somebody have him in pass and just didn't recognize it?
No, it was a run-pass conflict where when teams typically get in the formation that they did, and they do a good job of disguising it. You know, they're going to, what we call sugar huddle, they're going to be about 4 yards from the line of scrimmage, line up as fast as they can, get set, so that you don't recognize that it's an unbalanced formation. One of those receivers is what we call dead. He's covered by the X. He's not eligible, so he can't go out. We have a check to that, and so our guys have got to be able to communicate that. If they're blocking all the surfaces down, so they had basically they had a guard, a tackle, a tight end off the ball, a tight end on the point, and another one in a wing position. So you've got a 5-man surface. If I'm playing man or some version of zone and those guys block down, I've got to go fit. But where do my eyes got to be? Not in the backfield. They got to be on that tight end. They switched the tight end as they ran the X over, and our eyes were in the backfield, not on the man. And the key is being disciplined with your eyes, not assuming that on 4th and 1 on the minus 34-yard line that they're going to run it and I'm going to go fit my run. You've got to really trust your eyes that if that tight end's releasing, I've got to be able to play my pass responsibility. Is it harder when it happens fast and it's 4th and 1? You want to make a play in the backfield? Yes, but at the end of the day, you have to be responsible to your teammates, and I didn't do a good enough job of stressing that, obviously, because we didn't execute that very well.
I was going to ask you also about, I know you're focused on this year and what's right ahead of you, but I was going to ask you about next year. When Mudd is gone and that star position is basically vacated, do you have someone on the roster that you kind of envision spot? I don't know, is there a freshman or?
We'll find out this spring. We'll certainly have multiple guys compete for it. I think Muddy's done a really nice job of establishing what that position can do. He's a dynamic football player. He's got really good short area quickness. He can play man on slots. He blitzes really, really well. And those guys don't grow on trees. So we've got to develop a guy to be close to what he is now, or, maybe in the transfer portal there's somebody. So we'll figure it out.
And with Krishan, this being his last year of eligibility, what is Tyreek Matthews shown enough for you to be viable as a starter next year?
Yeah, we'll find out those things in the springtime and as we go to camp in the fall. But I think Tyreek and Jacob both have really progressed this year. I think Coach Bookbinder does a really nice job of teaching them the fundamentals of football. You can see the development. I think some of the tools we have, the virtual reality, has really helped those guys. The reps that maybe they don't get, they can get those mental reps all the time and see the picture in their mind so that they can play faster. And both of them certainly have played a lot faster in the opportunities, and they've earned more opportunities as the season's gone on.
And one other question, switching back to Muddy for a moment. Have you normally used that position to rush as much as he rushes, or is it kind of based on that player's skill set?
It's more that. When I was at Cal, we had more of a corner type of position where our slot was more of a corner body type. It was more to play man coverage on that slot. If we have a guy that's our 11th best football player or one of the top 11 and that's what we need to do, then we'll probably go more to that model. But, in an ideal world, we have a guy that can do both, and I think Mudd can do both. We'll see if we can, continue to develop those guys. I think, Coach Yates does a great job taking that raw material that Mudd had and having him understand how we want to use him. And I think Mudd's taken to it really, really well, and it's really increased his value for his ability after he's done here to play at the next level.
All right, we'll wrap it up there and bring it to our chip. All right, we'll start with Ariel to the left.
Coach, obviously on Saturday, both quarterbacks got in. Barron's a game time decision. What does the week of practice look like in order for preparation for Iowa State look like for all three quarterbacks this week?
Yeah, with Barron, it'll be interesting to see. He's out there throwing, or I know he was earlier with the trainers, trying to see how he's moving around a little bit. He'll probably be an emergency type situation. If I had to bet, I'll know a little bit more here this afternoon when they get done with him. So right now the plan is probably just kind of do what we did last week as far as kind of split those reps between Tyler and Donovan just to keep them both prepared. We had a few packages for Donovan, as y'all saw. Just felt like Tyler kind of really got in a rhythm there after the second series and just felt really good about him moving forward. So we kind of just kept him in the game.
And Coach McGuire mentioned that you guys really needed to establish the run game early on. From a play calling perspective from you, what does that look like?
Yeah, really just kind of do what we did last week, I felt like we did a good job of really trying to mix it up. We ran counter really well, had some inside zones hit. We called 4 designed quarterback runs. 3 of those were on 3rd and short or less, and 1 was in the red zone that I wish we would have scored on if we'd have kind of blocked. We didn't block it properly, but I want to say Tyler got 8 yards on. So, we got 3 good backs. So just try to find, each each guy's niche and where they get their touches, as well as kind of carrying the ball to the backfield. But same thing, we had our run game meeting just a couple hours ago with me and the O staff, and we feel like we got a good run game plan for these guys. And clearly, with the weather and just to take some off the quarterback, be able to establish run early and get that going.
Answered this in the previous one, but in terms of what y'all saw on tape, was it a matter of y'all just executing power or some of the play calls that you had, or was it something to where you saw something that'll work and it did work in the game plan for y'all in the running game?
Yeah, we felt like we had a really good plan going in, and we executed it well. At the end of the day, that comes down to just execution by our guys. Our guys did a good job, and we popped some big runs and had a couple that were called back that were big runs, that we wish we wouldn't have had back there, where you would have been looking over 300 yards rushing probably. So, again, really just, commend our guys for executing the game plan that we put together.
But do a couple things with Tyler and Donovan there, getting Tyler out wide. I guess, did you kind of get what you wanted? And I guess how exciting is that for you as a play caller to finally get some of those things in there for just the execution during a game situation?
Yeah, it was fun. It was good just to get Donnie out there. And, we started out with the run, which was beautiful. Blocked it up perfect. Mason Tharp had a huge block. Taj Brooks had a huge block. Donnie walks in the end zone, and then came back later and had the pop pass off of it. And, it was really close. We had some guys open. Tyler was even in the read on that one. He could have checked it to him down late if he wanted to. But, no, it was good, again, and we'll have some more of that moving forward. And kind of just depending on how it goes. Last week we battled it out throughout the week to see who's going to win. And either way, we were going to have that package where we were going to split Tyler out there just to kind of make those guys think. They don't know if there may be a double pass or what that could be. And again, I think you guys saw him too. He's pretty athletic and he runs well too. So I wouldn't be. And actually earlier in the week, Donnie actually threw him the check down, and he ended up running for it for about 8 or 9 yards and getting us inside the 5-yard line. So it's good. And again, I think it can stress the defense a little bit and keeps everybody engaged as well.
Jeff, followed by Mason.
Coach, when Tech fans hear the term double cloud against a Red Raider offense, it gets nervous twitches because very little success for the Red Raiders have been had in Ames, especially against that defense. As a play caller, how do you attack that defense?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, you got to be able to establish the run, and you got to have a great game plan on who you're blocking, because that's the thing that, again, when you watch on TV, you may be like, man, there's only 4 guys in the box. Why aren't we getting more yards? But how they put you in conflict with who's in what gaps in the run fit. And they really do a good job with those 3 deep safeties. Those guys are heavily involved in the run fit, depending on what kind of coverage, Coach Haycock's playing in the back end. So those guys are very involved, and they fly around. So biggest thing is trying to establish the run early. Playing with some tempo, too, I feel like that can give it some fits. But at the end of the day, it all just kind of comes down to us executing and staying the course. I mean, when you look at these guys on paper, they're the best defense we've seen statistically all year. You're talking number 10 in the country on total defense, 280 yards a game, and they're giving up 16 points a game. So they do a really good job. I feel like as a play caller, you can't get tired of getting 3 to 4 yards sometimes. And, I feel like, to be honest with you, we probably didn't do that. Sometimes whenever I was here in the past, you want to get aggressive because you're getting frustrated by 2 or 3 yard gains, and you kind of stick with it, because you got to be ready to grind it out. Again, we're watching them as a staff this morning, and you're watching them, and you're playing teams like Oklahoma and some teams like that have Baylor, who have unbelievably explosive offenses, and they're just not gaining a whole lot of yards on them. So you just got to stay patient as a play caller, and again, try to establish the run, play with a little tempo, and take your shots when you feel comfortable at those.
And when you factor in the weather for this weekend, is this a game where you go to Coach Perry and the running backs and say, boys, get ready, this is going to be your game?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think we want to start out trying to establish the run. But you saw it late, too. Kansas did a good job late, starting to add hats to the box. And that's kind of when we hit them with the big pass late to X White across the middle for the huge gain. And so you've got to be able to do both. I don't think you're just going to be able to come in the game and say, we're going to throw it 10 times and run it 60. I think you've got to be prepared to do both. And, as far as the weather goes, they got to play in the same weather as we do. So that's the way I look at it. If they're cold, we're cold, and vice versa. So we're going to get a good dose of it tomorrow morning. It'll be fun.
Mason and Jared.
Being a guy that obviously likes to pass the ball a lot, what stands out to you the most about Iowa State's passing defense?
Yeah, again, they just fly around in the back end, and Haycock does such a good job of mixing it up. They're in the 3 deep shell, but they move those guys around. So, you're going to have, again, I refer to that middle safety as a free player because he's got a lot of freedom. So they'll play really cover 4 behind it. They'll play 3 double sky behind it. They will play some double cloud at times. They'll play man free. Again, try to find formations and some stuff like that maybe simplifies them down a little bit, where you can kind of know where they're going to be. But again, I feel good about our receiving core and our quarterbacks being able to make plays on them. We just got to execute.
There's a reason, not just this year, but year in, year out, Iowa State's able to kind of pride themselves on their defensive play.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it goes back to Coach Haycock and the job he's done there, because they've been really, really good every year. And the thing that I think you really see by him is he's adapted it. I'd be lying to you if I said it was the exact same defense that they ran against me my last year here in 2017. It's adapted, and because I think with everything, at some point you can exploit certain things and with everybody. And so he does a really good job of really mixing it up, and I think he's done that where he can still give you those old looks, but is giving you some new looks that maybe you haven't seen before.
Hey, Coach, I have a couple questions about you utilizing the tight ends in the running game. It appeared that you motioned them more against Kansas. Is that correct? And then also, how have they helped in the running game?
Yeah, well, first off, they've been phenomenal in the run game. Again, they were on the field a lot and only caught 2 balls. One was a touchdown, but we didn't throw it as much either, just because we were running the ball so well. But that is a very underrated deal that they have. When you really go back and you watch those guys in the run block, and they're phenomenal. Coach Cochran is the best in the country when it comes to that stuff, and he's getting those guys going, and you got studs out there too, so it's always good to have those guys. And going back with the motion, it just kind of really fit in with our game plan as far as motioning those guys, marrying it up with kind of everything we have, motion them out throwing the ball, motion them out running counter, motion them out running split zone, motion them out, splitting them off a split zone to the flat, just really trying to kind of marry some stuff up with the game plan when it comes to the motions.
Cameron Valdez was featured in a couple of series. What does he bring to the offense?
Yeah, man, he's got a different burst. I think you see that when you watch him. He had couple really, really big runs for us. You know, his biggest deal right now, we were laughing watching it, you know, is about, I think we gave him the ball 4 or 5 straight plays in a row one drive, and that 5th carry, you could tell his cardiovascular isn't quite there yet from being out a little bit. So we got to keep working him back into shape. But he just pops the hole. He's a one-cut runner, you know, and that's a little bit different than Taj and Saradric, who are very patient runners. And you know, clearly, it's good to have that changeup, and so being able to have those 2 guys that are back there a little bit patient, that kind of set up their blocks a little bit more, where Cam's just going to stick that foot in the ground and get vertical, which is really good too, because you know, the way I look at that, you're probably going to be looking at somewhere between 3 to 5 yards a pop either way. So proud of him. You know, really good to get him back out there. You know, what we saw against TCU was really good, and I think he's continuing to get better, and I think y'all saw that against Kansas.
Do you call different plays for him than you would Saradric or Taj?
No, it was really all the same stuff. You know, he popped, you know, the second play of the game, we ran what we just call a kick-out play, which is a gap scheme kick-out play to Taj, and he popped it for 7 yards, I think, in a first down. We came back and Cam ran one, and we pushed crack to safety, and so he got outside of the corner and ran it for 15 plus. He had a couple inside zones, which we ran all night. I feel comfortable with him. Like I said, he's, you know, clearly doesn't have the experience that the other 2 guys have, but he's been out there. He knows the offense in and out, so I feel comfortable with him running really every package that we have in.
Coach, going back to Tyler on Saturday, leading the team on the ground, but despite his recent history with running and getting injured, you'd think that would damage confidence in most guys to be able to go back on the ground. Obviously not Tyler.
Yeah, again, you know, we kind of went into it knowing like a key play for us in 3rd and 4th and shorts, we're utilizing the quarterback run, and he's a whatever it takes guy. You know, I didn't want to just overrun him, but at the same time, we're here to win football games. And so, you know, putting Donovan out there in 3rd and 1 is going to pack the box because people are going to think he's running every time. And Tyler, again, as y'all saw, is a very talented runner. I think he ended up with 12 carries, I think. But again, four called runs. He scrambled 8 times and really made some huge plays with his legs. Again, I think coming out against TCU and running him on a couple of those option plays that we ran, and him getting tackled a couple of times was really good for his confidence, because you know he was fearless out there with his, you know, what he's had happen the last couple of years, and I've known it since I've been here that he's a talented runner. I mean, the dude clocked almost 21 miles an hour this spring on the GPS, and you know he's 6'4", 225, and he likes to run, and so. Clearly, that's an advantage for us. You know, again, I'm not planning on going in and running him 15 times on called runs, but there's going to be some times where you're going to see some called runs because we feel like that's what we may need to get a yard or two, or we're in the red zone, and we're gonna have to lean on that some. But the biggest thing that I was proud of is he kept his eyes downfield and went through his progressions. When the progressions broke down, he took off and made plays, which is huge.
Any final questions?